Dr. Kurl was not like the others of his kind. He was careful, quiet, and always watching. While the Alien Council trusted in numbers and old predictions, Dr. Kurl trusted only in his own eyes. And lately what he saw made his skin grow cold. For many years his people had studied a small blue planet called Earth. The reports always said the same thing. Humans were weak, divided, and easy to control. The data promised they would never rise high. They were supposed to fight among themselves until they burned out. That was the future the numbers gave. It was the story every alien believed. But Dr. Kurl had noticed something strange. The data was changing, twisting in ways that made no sense. He sat alone in his research chamber, the screens glowing in the dark. Rows of numbers filled the air, charts of population, energy, and knowledge spread across the walls. He had checked them again and again. He had run the equations 10 times, 100 times, but the result was always the same. Something was wrong. Humans were not slowing down. They were speeding up. They built machines faster than expected. They solved problems no other species could solve in such little time. And their strength. It was rising in a way the models could not explain. Dr. Kurl pressed his hands together and whispered to himself. The data lied. The sound of his own voice in the empty chamber made him shiver. He looked again at the graphs. They climbed upward like a fire spreading through dry wood. The more he stared, the more afraid he became. In the records, other species took thousands of years to climb from stone tools to the stars, but humans, they had taken only a few heartbeats of cosmic time. One moment they carried spears. The next they carried fire that could split worlds. It was impossible, it was dangerous, and it was real. His people had been told that humans were predictable, that they were violent but limited. But the new data showed something terrifying. Humans were not limited at all. Every time they were broken, they rebuilt stronger. Every time they were defeated, they came back faster. The numbers could not measure that kind of will. And so the numbers had lied. Kurl leaned back, his dark eyes staring at the ceiling. He remembered the last report he had given to the council. They had laughed. They told him not to worry. Humans are a noisy species, they said. Nothing more. But Kurl's fear had only grown since that day. The screens changed again. New reports came in. Machines that learned on their own. Weapons that reached beyond the skies, and signals, human voices, whispering across the stars. They were reaching outward. They were not supposed to reach this far. Not this fast. The data had promised safety. But the data was wrong. Kurl stood up and paced the chamber. His long fingers tapped against the cold metal walls. He tried to think of a reason. Maybe the humans had found help from another race. Maybe they had stolen knowledge, but deep in his heart he knew the truth. This was not stolen, this was human. There was something inside them. Something no other species had. A fire that could not be measured. He opened an old archive from the first observations of Earth. Pictures of humans hunting in forests. Images of tribes fighting with sticks and stones. Weak, small, fragile. And then he compared it with the newest images. Cities glowing with light. Ships flying through the dark sky. Eyes burning with curiosity. They were the same species. But they were not the same at all, Kurl whispered again. Louder this time. The data lied. The words echoed through the empty chamber like a warning. He knew he had to tell the council again. He knew they would laugh again. But the truth could not be hidden much longer. The humans were rising. The numbers were broken. And something far greater was coming. Kurl turned to the largest screen. It showed Earth spinning silently in space, so small, so harmless to any eye that did not look deeper. But Kurl had looked deeper, and he had seen what lived inside. A will that defied the universe itself. He felt his chest tighten, not only with fear but with awe, the kind of awe that comes before a storm. The chamber lights dimmed, the screens kept glowing, the numbers kept climbing, and Dr. Kurl knew one thing for certain. The future was no longer safe. The future was no longer controlled. The future belonged to humans. Dr. Kurl could not sleep. Even when the chamber lights dimmed and the other scientists rested, his mind stayed awake. The numbers kept flashing in his thoughts. The humans were moving too quickly. Something was pushing them forward, faster than nature should allow. He walked through the long corridors of the research station. Metal walls hummed with the quiet sound of machines. Most of his people were calm. They trusted the data. But Kurl no longer trusted anything. Every step echoed like a warning in the silence. He opened another terminal and called up the newest records. Wars on Earth had ended sooner than predicted. Every war should have broken humanity. Every conflict should have slowed their growth, but instead each war made them stronger. They learned faster, rebuilt quicker. It was as if struggle only fueled their rise. Quirrell studied the timelines. In only a few centuries, humans had gone from horses to machines that flew beyond their skies. No other species had leapt so far so quickly. It was not just strange, it was terrifying. He remembered his teacher's words long ago. Numbers never lie. But now, Quirrell thought, what if numbers cannot see the whole truth? He compared energy growth charts. The humans were burning fuel, then building reactors, then splitting atoms. Now whispers of fusion appeared in their science reports. The pattern was clear. Each discovery came sooner than expected. Each step brought them closer to the stars. His claws tapped against the console. He sent a message to a fellow researcher, but the reply was calm, almost lazy. Do not worry, Dr. Quirrell, the humans are noisy but harmless. Quirrell felt anger and fear twist inside him. He typed back, the data is lying, open your eyes. But no answer came. He sighed, walking back to his chamber. The screens waited for him, glowing in the dark. And on those screens were the true warnings. Signals sent by humans across the void. They spoke into space, calling for contact, not afraid, not careful but bold. They were not hiding from the galaxy. They were announcing themselves. Quirrell listened to one of the signals, a simple human voice. Repeating greetings in many tongues. To his people it sounded weak. But to Quirrell it sounded like thunder, a small species shouting into the dark, unaware of the dangers waiting among the stars, or maybe aware and not caring. The thought chilled him. Perhaps humans knew there was danger. Perhaps they were not blind but fearless. That made them even more dangerous. A species that feared nothing could not be stopped. Quirrell searched deeper into the archives. He found maps of human cities, every one of them rebuilt again and again after disaster. Floods, fires, bombs, none of it stopped them. They rose higher each time. Even their mistakes became fuel for progress. The warnings were everywhere, but no one else wanted to see them. Quirrell remembered the council chamber, the tall figures sitting in their bright seats. He had tried to speak before. He had told them the data was wrong, but they had silenced him with laughter. Do not waste our time with fear, they had said. Now he knew they were blind, and blindness would cost them all. The humans were like a storm building on the horizon, still small but unstoppable. He could almost feel the rumble in the distance. A storm no walls could block. Quirrell opened a private log. He began to record his thoughts. If anyone finds this later, know the truth, he whispered. The data lied. Humans are not weak. Their wars do not destroy them, they make them stronger. Their struggles do not stop them. They push them forward. This is the warning. If no one will hear me now, maybe someone will hear this later. The screens flickered with fresh updates. A new machine had been launched from Earth. It carried instruments to scan deep space. It was small, but it carried human curiosity. Quirrell leaned closer, watching the data scroll by. The humans had built this with hands barely ready for the stars. And yet they had done it again, the numbers failed to explain. Again, the future grew darker. Quirrell closed his eyes for a moment. He tried to imagine what would happen when humans finally broke free from their world. Would they come as explorers or conquerors? Would they bring peace or war? The data could not answer. The data was blind, only instinct remained. And his instinct screamed that danger was near. He stood up, his body shaking. For the first time, he realized the truth. It did not matter what the council believed. It did not matter what the other scientists thought. The warning signs were clear. The storm was already moving, and soon the galaxy would feel it. Dr. Quirrell sat in silence, his eyes fixed on the endless streams of numbers. The chamber was quiet, yet inside his mind there was a storm. The data told a story that no one wanted to believe, and that story was terrifying. He had compared human progress with the records of dozens of species. Some had taken 10,000 years to climb from fire to flight. Others had taken 50,000 to escape their home worlds. But humans had done it in mere centuries. The speed was unnatural. It was like watching a spark become a wildfire in the blink of an eye. Every time Quirrell ran the numbers, the same conclusion appeared. Humans were growing at a rate that could not be stopped. Their machines multiplied. Their knowledge spread. Their strength climbed. It was not just growth, it was acceleration. And the more Kuril studied, the more he felt a deep fear that he could not shake. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. His thoughts returned to history. The old records spoke of species that had burned themselves out, rising too fast, falling into ruin. But humans were different. They did not burn out. They burned brighter. Every war, every disaster, every mistake only fed their progress. It was as if they were designed to survive, as if the universe itself could not stop them. The silent fear crept deeper into his chest. What if the council was wrong? What if the galaxy had underestimated them? What if the small blue planet was not weak, but the most dangerous world of all? Kuril opened another set of archives. He watched old images of human history. Cities turned to rubble, yet rebuilt in greater form. Empires collapsed, yet new nations rose stronger. Every fall was followed by a rise. Every wound healed with new power. It was a cycle that numbers could not measure. It was a strength that logic could not explain. He whispered to himself, "This is not normal. This is something else." His voice trembled in the empty chamber. He remembered the council's laughter, their disbelief, their arrogance, but deep in his heart, he knew he was right. The fear was real, the danger was real. Kuril tapped a command and the screen changed. It showed projections of the future at current speed. Humans would reach beyond their system within a handful of decades. They would build ships faster, bigger, stronger. They would not stop. And once they broke free, nothing could hold them back. The thought filled Kuril with dread. His species had ruled for thousands of years without challenge. But what if this small, restless race became the challenger? What if their fire spread across the stars? Would the galaxy survive them? Or would the galaxy be remade in their image? The silent fear became a weight on his chest. He tried to steady his breathing, but every number, every chart, every report screamed the same truth. Humans were not slowing. Humans were not stopping. The storm was already here and his people were blind to it. Kuril remembered standing in the council chamber, his voice shaking as he warned them. His words drowned in laughter. He had walked away humiliated, but now he wished he had shouted louder. He wished he had forced them to see, because soon it would be too late. He turned back to the screens. Another report flashed. A human experiment in medicine. They had cured diseases faster than predicted. They had extended lifespans. Even nature's limits were being challenged. They were not just growing in power. They were changing themselves. Evolving by their own hands, Kuril clenched his fists. The silence of the chamber grew heavier. Fear twisted with awe. Part of him wanted to admire them. Part of him wanted to warn the galaxy. But most of him wanted to hide because he knew the truth. A force like this could not be controlled. It could only be endured. He opened his private log again. His claws tapped nervously against the console. "If anyone finds this message," he whispered, "know that I saw the signs, know that I tried to warn them. The data is wrong. The numbers are blind. Humans are not weak. They are unstoppable. And they are coming." The chamber lights flickered as if the station itself trembled at his words. Kuril's eyes shifted to the image of Earth on the screen. The small blue world turned slowly in the dark, so peaceful to anyone who did not look deeper. But to Kuril it was a world wrapped in fire, a fire that would soon reach into the stars. The fear did not leave him, it only grew, it sat with him in silence. A silent fear that whispered in his mind, "The humans are rising and nothing can stop them." Dr. Kuril felt the weight of silence pressing on his chest. The research chamber glowed with pale light. The numbers on the screens spun like endless storms, but hidden beneath the storm was something more frightening, something the data could never explain. He leaned closer to the console, his fingers shaking. He had compared every chart, every equation, every model, yet the truth did not live in numbers. It lived in the spaces between them. A hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. Humans were not like other species. Every other race followed the same curve of growth, a slow climb, a long plateau, then either survival or extinction. But humans had no plateau. They leapt higher with every fall. It was as if they were designed to break rules, as if nature itself had bent to their will. Kuril called up images from the archives. He saw ancient humans walking with crude weapons. Then, only a few heartbeats later in cosmic time, they carried machines that touched the edges of space, he whispered to himself. How did they move so fast? The question haunted him. The answer hid just out of reach. The more he studied, the more he saw it. It was not strength of body. It was not even strength of mind. It was something deeper, something invisible. The humans carried within them a force that defied logic. Creativity, willpower, imagination. Words too small for the truth. They dreamed beyond their limits, and then they made those dreams real. Kuril remembered how the council dismissed his warnings. Machines and weapons mean nothing, they had told him. They will destroy themselves. But the hidden truth said otherwise. Humans did not fear destruction, they used it. They rose from the ashes stronger than before. No chart could measure that, no model could contain it. He pressed a command and the screens filled with human inventions. Steam engines, rockets, networks of information, each one built on the ruins of the last. The pattern was clear. Destruction was not their end. It was their fuel. Kuril felt his breath quicken. He was no longer only afraid, he was in awe. The hidden truth was simple but terrifying. Humans were not bound by the rules of nature. They rewrote the rules and they would keep rewriting them, until nothing could stand in their way. He opened a secret file, notes from other observers. Long forgotten, one had written, "Humans are unpredictable. Avoid close study," another had written, "They cannot be modeled. They are chaos." But those voices had been silenced by the council. Buried under the comfort of numbers, now Kuril saw they had been right all along. He stared at the rotating image of Earth, that small blue sphere glowing in the dark. How could something so fragile contain such power? The hidden truth whispered to him, "It is not the planet, it is the species. It is not their resources, it is their will." That was the secret the data had failed to see. Kuril pressed record on his private log. His voice was low, trembling. "If this message survives, remember this. The humans are not just advancing. They are rewriting existence itself. They do not accept limits, they do not accept failure. Every obstacle becomes their ladder. Every fall becomes their rise. That is the hidden truth. And it cannot be measured." The chamber lights flickered. His reflection in the screen looked pale, tired, afraid. He wondered what would happen when humans reached the stars. Would they bring hope? Would they bring ruin? Or would they bring both? The hidden truth gave no answer. It only whispered that they were coming, and nothing could stop them. Kuril turned off the console. Darkness filled the room. But even in darkness, the truth remained. He could not escape it. He could not silence it. The humans were not a mistake in the data. They were the exception. The one fire the universe could not put out. He sat in the silence, the fear still inside him, the awe still burning beside it. And he knew the path ahead. He would return to the council. He would try once more to speak, even if they laughed again, even if they silenced him, because the truth could not stay hidden. And soon the galaxy would see it for themselves. Dr. Kuril felt the weight of silence pressing on his chest. The research chamber glowed with pale light. The numbers on the screen spun like endless storms. But hidden beneath the storm was something more frightening, something the data could never explain. He leaned closer to the console, his fingers shaking. He had compared every chart, every equation, every model. Yet the truth did not live in numbers. It lived in the spaces between them. A hidden truth waiting to be uncovered. Humans were not like other species. Every other race followed the same curve of growth, a slow climb, a long plateau, then either survival or extinction. But humans had no plateau. They leapt higher with every fall. It was as if they were designed to break rules, as if nature itself had bent to their will. Kuril called up images from the archives. He saw ancient humans walking with crude weapons. Then only a few heartbeats later in cosmic time, they carried machines that touched the edges of space, he whispered to himself. How did they move so fast? The question haunted him. The answer hid just out of reach. The more he studied, the more he saw it. It was not strength of body. It was not even strength of mind. It was something deeper, something invisible. The humans carried within them a force that defied logic. Creativity, willpower, imagination, words too small for the truth. They dreamed beyond their limits, and then they made those dreams real. Kuril remembered how the council dismissed his warnings. Machines and weapons mean nothing, they had told him. They will destroy themselves. But the hidden truth said otherwise. Humans did not fear destruction, they used it. They rose from the ashes stronger than before. No chart could measure that. No model could contain it. He pressed a command and the screens filled with human inventions. Steam engines, rockets, networks of information, each one built on the ruins of the last. The pattern was clear. Destruction was not their end. It was their fuel. Kuril felt his breath quicken. He was no longer only afraid, he was in awe. The hidden truth was simple but terrifying. Humans were not bound by the rules of nature. They rewrote the rules, and they would keep rewriting them, until nothing could stand in their way. He opened a secret file, notes from other observers. Long forgotten, one had written. Humans are unpredictable. Avoid close study, another had written. They cannot be modeled. They are chaos. But those voices had been silenced by the council. Buried under the comfort of numbers, now Kuril saw they had been right all along. He stared at the rotating image of Earth, that small blue sphere glowing in the dark. How could something so fragile contain such power? The hidden truth whispered to him. It is not the planet, it is the species. It is not their resources, it is their will. That was the secret the data had failed to see. Kuril pressed record on his private log. His voice was low, trembling. If this message survives, remember this. The humans are not just advancing, they are rewriting existence itself. They do not accept limits, they do not accept failure. Every obstacle becomes their ladder. Every fall becomes their rise, that is the hidden truth. And it cannot be measured. The chamber lights flickered. His reflection in the screen looked pale, tired, afraid. He wondered what would happen when humans reached the stars. Would they bring hope? Would they bring ruin? Or would they bring both? The hidden truth gave no answer. It only whispered that they were coming and nothing could stop them. Kuril turned off the console. Darkness filled the room. But even in darkness, the truth remained. He could not escape it, he could not silence it. The humans were not a mistake in the data. They were the exception. The one fire the universe could not put out. He sat in the silence, the fear still inside him, the awe still burning beside it. And he knew the path ahead. He would return to the council. He would try once more to speak, even if they laughed again, even if they silenced him, because the truth could not stay hidden, and soon the galaxy would see it for themselves. The research station floated in silence above a cold star. Dr. Kuril sat alone in his chamber, his eyes heavy with defeat. The council had dismissed him once more. Their laughter still echoed in his mind, but even their denial could not erase the truth. And that truth was about to reveal itself in a way no one could ignore. The alarm came first, a sharp sound breaking the quiet. Kuril rushed to his console. Lines of data filled the screens. Something had entered their long-range sensors. Something unexpected. He leaned closer, his eyes narrowing. A ship, human in design, had crossed into monitored space. Kuril froze. For a moment he thought it was a mistake. Perhaps another vessel. Perhaps a trick of the sensors. But the signature was clear. The ship carried human design, human power, human will, and it had reached farther than the council believed possible. He whispered to himself, no, it cannot be. Not so soon. His claws tapped against the console as he opened the scans. The ship was small compared to the mighty fleets of the galaxy, but its speed was astonishing. Its design was clever, efficient, and bold. It was proof that the humans had leapt forward again. Proof that the data had lied. Kuril's chest tightened. He remembered the counselors' voices. They will not matter, they had said. They cannot reach beyond their world. Yet here it was. A human vessel cutting through the dark, daring to go where no one thought they could. The terrifying proof lit the chamber like fire. He activated the recorders, every image. Every detail had to be captured. This was no longer theory. This was reality, and reality could not be denied. He watched the engines burn bright. He studied the hull, patched together yet strong. It was not perfect, but it worked, and that was more frightening than perfection. Because humans did not wait for permission. They did not wait for certainty. They acted, they risked, they built with what they had, and somehow it was enough. Enough to break through the limits. Enough to shake the galaxy. Kuril leaned closer, his breath shallow. The ship carried signals, human voices speaking into the void. Not whispers of fear, but bold greetings. They were not hiding. They were announcing themselves. It was as if they were saying to the stars, "We are here." The words chilled him. He imagined the council hearing this. He imagined their laughter turning to silence. But he also imagined their anger because proof meant fear, and fear often turned to violence. The ship moved steadily across the sensors. It was not a dream, not a mistake, it was human. And it was real. Kuril saved the files. He stored them in hidden channels. If the council destroyed the evidence, he would still keep the truth. He sat back in his chair, his heart pounding. The terrifying proof was not just the ship. It was what the ship meant. It meant humans had already broken the limits. It meant they were ahead of schedule. It meant the galaxy had far less time than anyone believed, Kurel whispered. It has begun. His voice trembled with both fear and awe. He thought of Earth spinning silently in the dark, a small world with a storm inside it, a storm now spilling into space. He remembered again the old archives, predictions that humans would need centuries more. Those predictions were ash now. The proof burned them away. The models had failed, the data had lied, and the humans had arrived. Kurel pressed his hand against the console. He knew he had to act, he had to warn someone, anyone who would listen, but deep inside he wondered if it was already too late. The humans were not asking for permission, they were already here, and soon they would come farther. The alarms faded. The ship moved beyond the edge of the sensors, but its presence lingered like thunder after lightning. The chamber was quiet again, yet the silence was heavier than before, because now the truth could not be ignored. Now the proof existed, and it was terrifying. Kurel closed his eyes. He saw the future unfolding, ships multiplying, fleets rising, voices spreading across the stars, and with them came the unknown, hope or destruction, unity or conquest, he could not tell. All he knew was that nothing could stop it. Nothing could stop them. He opened his private log once more. His claws moved quickly. This is the proof, he whispered. The humans have broken free, they have reached us sooner than expected. The council will not believe me, but the truth no longer needs belief, it has shown itself, and soon the galaxy will see what I have seen. The screen dimmed. The stars outside the viewport seemed brighter, and among them, Kurel imagined more human ships. Each one a spark in the growing fire, he whispered one last time. The data lied and the proof is here. The station was quiet, but inside Dr. Kurel's heart there was no peace. The human ship had disappeared beyond the sensors, yet its shadow remained. It was proof that could not be erased. Proof that the future had already shifted, and Kurel knew the galaxy was not ready. He sat before his console, the screens glowing in the dim light. His claws hovered above the controls, trembling. He had already sent secret warnings to hidden channels, but still it was not enough. The council ignored him. The scientists mocked him. No one wanted to see what he had seen. Kurel leaned forward and whispered to the recorder, "If the council will not hear me, then I must speak to the galaxy." His voice shook as he continued. "The humans are coming, they are not weak. They are not slow, they are fire. And fire does not stop." He paused, his throat dry. The words felt heavy, dangerous. Because he was no longer just a scientist, he was a voice of warning. And warnings were not always welcome. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched across the black, silent, calm, eternal. But Kurel no longer trusted their calm. He saw them as fuel waiting to burn. Fuel for the storm that was gathering. He opened another file, projecting future paths. The models showed human ships multiplying, each decade faster, each century stronger. Soon their reach would touch nearby systems. Soon their curiosity would bring them to the very heart of the galaxy, and once they arrived, nothing would remain the same. The storm was not only speed, it was will. Humans carried something no data could measure. A hunger, a drive, a need to climb. They would not stop at stars, they would not stop at galaxies. They would go farther, always farther. Kurel felt the weight of fear pressing on him. He remembered the council chamber, the laughter, the denial, but in his mind he could already hear their silence when the truth reached them. He could see their pride crumble when the storm arrived. He opened his private log again. His claws scratched against the console as he spoke. The coming storm cannot be avoided. It cannot be controlled, we can only prepare or be swept away. I do not know if humans will bring salvation or ruin, but I know they will bring change. Change beyond anything we can imagine. He saved the file in hidden archives. He encrypted it with layers of codes. One day, when others finally opened their eyes, they would see his warnings, but would it be too late? Would the storm already be upon them? The chamber lights flickered again. The station trembled softly as if echoing his dread. Kurel closed his eyes. He imagined fleets of human ships, bold, imperfect, yet unstoppable. Each one carrying the same fire. Each one carrying the same hunger. He imagined the first contact. Would humans come with open hands? Would they come with weapons ready? Perhaps both. Because humans were not only dreamers, they were also warriors. They carried kindness and cruelty in equal measure. And no one could predict which they would choose. The storm was not far. It was already building. Kurel could feel it in his bones, every report, every signal. Every new invention was thunder, and the thunder was growing louder. He rose from his chair and walked to the viewport. The stars stared back, indifferent and cold. But he saw them as battlefields, he saw them as bridges, he saw them as the next steps of humanity. And he knew his people were blind to it. They will not listen, he whispered to himself. They will laugh until the storm breaks their walls. His reflection in the glass looked tired, desperate, afraid. Yet beneath the fear there was something else. A spark of awe, because part of him admired the humans. Part of him respected the fire, and part of him wondered if the galaxy needed that fire. Even if it burned, the silence of the station pressed in on him. But Kurel no longer trusted silence. He knew it was only the pause before the storm. A storm carried on human voices, human ships, human dreams. He pressed his claws against the glass and whispered one last time. The storm is coming and nothing will stop it.